August 20th, 1989, Beverly Hills, California, 10 p.m. A frantic 911 call comes in from 722 North Elm Drive, one of the most exclusive addresses in one of America's wealthiest neighborhoods. Two young men are screaming, hysterical, barely coherent. "Someone killed my parents," one of them shouts through sobs. Police arrive within minutes to find a scene of absolute carnage. Jose Menendez, 45, a wealthy entertainment executive, is dead on the couch in the family room, his body torn apart by shotgun blasts. His wife, Kitty Menendez, 47, lies nearby, also killed by multiple shotgun wounds. The brutality is shocking. This wasn't just murder, it was execution, overkill, rage. The couple's two sons, Lyle, 21, and Eric, 18, tell police they'd been out watching a movie Batman, came home to find their parents dead. They appear devastated, traumatized. Police initially suspect a mob hit. Jose had been a successful businessman with connections to the entertainment industry. Maybe he'd crossed the wrong people. Maybe this was organized crime. The boys seem like victims themselves, orphaned in the most horrific way imaginable. But within months, the truth would emerge, and it would shock the nation. Lyle and Eric Menendez hadn't discovered their parents' bodies. They were the ones who pulled the triggers. Welcome to the story of the Menendez brothers, one of the most controversial and sensational murder cases of the 1990s. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore what led to privileged young men to brutally murder their own parents, the shocking trial that captivated America, and the question that still divides people today: were they cold-blooded killers motivated by greed, or were they abused victims who snapped after years of torment? The Menendez family looked perfect from the outside. Jose Menendez had immigrated from Cuba as a teenager and built an impressive career in entertainment, eventually becoming an executive at Live Entertainment. He was driven, ambitious, and wealthy. Kitty was a former beauty queen who'd given up her own career aspirations to be a wife and mother. They lived in a $4 million mansion in Beverly Hills. Their sons attended elite schools. They took expensive vacations. They had everything money could buy. But behind closed doors, according to Lyle and Eric's later testimony, the family was deeply dysfunctional and abusive. The brothers would later claim that their father had sexually, physically, and emotionally abused them for years, starting when they were children. They said Jose was controlling and tyrannical, that he molested Eric regularly and had threatened to kill them if they ever told anyone. They claimed their mother knew about the abuse but did nothing to stop it, sometimes even participated in the abuse herself. According to their story, by August 1989, they feared for their lives, believing their parents were going to kill them to prevent them from exposing the family's dark secrets. On the night of August 20th, 1989, according to their eventual confessions, Lyle and Eric loaded shotguns, entered the family room where their parents were watching television, and opened fire. They shot Jose multiple times, then turned on Kitty. When she tried to crawl away, they reloaded and shot her again and again. The final shot to Kitty's face was delivered at point-blank range. The medical examiner would later testify that Kitty was shot 10 times, Jose 6 times. This was overkill, execution-style murder. Then the brothers left the house, disposed of the weapons, bought movie tickets to create an alibi, and came home to discover the bodies and call 911. In the immediate aftermath, the brothers seemed like grieving sons. They cried at the funeral. They spoke emotionally about their loss, but they also started spending money, a lot of money. They bought Rolex watches, expensive cars, courtside Lakers tickets, and condos. Eric hired a tennis coach for $60,000. Lyle bought a restaurant. Within 6 months, they'd spent approximately $700,000 of their inheritance. To investigators, this didn't look like grieving, it looked like celebration. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. Eric had been seeing a psychologist named Dr. Jerome Azel, and during sessions, he confessed to the murders. Dr. Azel taped some of these sessions. His girlfriend, Judalon Smythe, went to police and told them about the tapes after she and Dr. Azel had a falling out. This led to the arrests of Lyle and Eric in March 1990, 7 months after the murders. The tapes would become crucial evidence, though their admissibility would be heavily debated due to doctor-patient privilege. The first trial began in 1993 and became a media sensation. Court TV broadcast it live, making it one of the first trials to receive that level of media attention. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Lyle and Eric murdered their parents for money. They were spoiled rich kids who wanted their inheritance and were willing to kill to get it. The brutal nature of the murders, the planning involved, and the spending spree afterward all pointed to premeditated murder, motivated by greed. The defense presented a dramatically different story. They argued that Lyle and Eric were victims of horrific long-term sexual and psychological abuse by their father, and that their mother had enabled and participated in that abuse. They claimed the brothers genuinely believed their parents were going to kill them, and they acted in imperfect self-defense. The defense brought in family members and experts who testified about signs of abuse and the psychological impact of long-term trauma. Eric and Lyle both took the stand and gave emotional, detailed testimony about years of molestation and terror. The trial was explosive. The abuse allegations were graphic and disturbing. The brothers cried on the stand. Some jurors cried listening to them. The public was divided. Some believed the brothers were telling the truth about the abuse and deserved sympathy. Others thought they were manipulative liars who had murdered their parents in cold blood and were now using false abuse allegations to escape justice. The first trial ended in hung juries. Neither brother could be convicted because the juries couldn't reach unanimous verdicts. The jurors were split between first-degree murder and manslaughter. It was a shocking outcome given the brutality of the crimes. The second trial in 1995 was very different. The judge restricted the defense's ability to present detailed evidence of abuse. Much of the testimony about sexual molestation was limited. The defense's case was significantly weakened. The prosecution hammered on the planning, the brutality, and the spending. They argued the abuse claims were lies designed to manipulate the jury. This time, both brothers were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So what's the truth? Were Lyle and Eric Menendez abused victims who killed in desperation? Or were they greedy killers who murdered for money? The honest answer is that it's complicated, and people still disagree today. There was evidence supporting some level of dysfunction in the family. Some relatives testified to witnessing concerning behavior, but there was no physical evidence of sexual abuse, and Jose and Kitty weren't alive to defend themselves against the allegations. The brothers had clear financial motives. They inherited millions and immediately started spending lavishly. But financial motive doesn't disprove abuse, and abuse doesn't excuse premeditated murder. What's undeniable is that the brothers planned and executed their parents with shocking brutality, then lied about it for months, and spent their inheritance freely while pretending to grieve. Whether they were also abuse victims is something we may never know with absolute certainty. Lyle and Eric are currently serving life sentences in California prisons. For years they were separated, housed in different facilities. In 2018, they were reunited at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. The first time they'd seen each other in person in over 20 years. Both have married while in prison. Both maintain that they were abused and that they acted out of fear, not greed. The case has experienced a resurgence of interest in recent years, particularly among younger generations who weren't alive when the murders happened. Social media, particularly TikTok, has seen an explosion of content about the Menendez brothers, with many young people expressing sympathy for them and arguing they deserve sentencing. A 2023 Netflix documentary series renewed public interest and sparked debates about whether the brothers received fair trials, especially given the restrictions on abuse evidence in the second trial. These renewed discussions have led to questions about how we treat male victims of sexual abuse, particularly in the justice system. In 1989 and the 1990s, the idea of boys being sexually abused by their fathers was less widely understood or believed than it might be today. There's an argument to be made that if the same case happened today, with greater awareness of childhood sexual abuse and its psychological impacts, the outcome might be different. But there's also the undeniable brutality of what they did. Even if we accept every allegation of abuse as true, the question remains, was execution-style murder of both parents justified? Most legal experts say no, that self-defense requires imminent threat, and there are other options for abuse victims, including going to police, running away, or seeking help from other family members. The brothers were adults 21 and 18 with resources and options. They chose murder, planned it, executed it with extreme violence, and then lied about it. The Menendez case remains one of the most debated cases in true crime because it forces us to hold multiple uncomfortable truths at once. It's possible the brothers were abused. It's also true they committed premeditated, brutal murder. It's possible they were motivated by both trauma and greed. It's possible they're manipulative liars and also damaged by their childhood. Real life is rarely as simple as clear-cut, guilty or innocent, monster or victim. What we know for certain is that on August 20th, 1989, 2 young men killed their parents in one of the most brutal family murders in American history. Whether they were driven by fear or greed, whether they deserved sympathy or condemnation, they destroyed their family and guaranteed they'd spend the rest of their lives in prison. Jose and Kitty Menendez are dead, unable to defend themselves against accusations or answer for alleged abuse. Lyle and Eric Menendez are serving life sentences, their futures determined by decisions they made when they were barely adults. The case stands as a reminder that families can hide terrible secrets behind walls of wealth and respectability, that abuse can create devastating consequences, and that murder, regardless of motivation, destroys lives on all sides. The Menendez brothers' story doesn't have a satisfying ending because real tragedies rarely do. It's just loss, all the way down. Thanks for watching this exploration of one of the most controversial cases in true crime history. The Menendez brothers continue to divide opinion decades later, and their case raises important questions about abuse, justice, and where we draw the line between victim and perpetrator. Let me know what you think in the comments. But remember to be respectful. This case involves real tragedy and real people affected by these events.